Did you know there are actually 4 different definitions of the word appreciate? And that matters because they actually all kind of flow together to make this really beautiful idea of how appreciation actually works. But you know what? Don't waste your time with me. My recent guest, author Stephen Crane, knocked this out of the park. So let's go straight to that interview and check it out.
Be better tomorrow because of what you do today.
You define in the book, you take the 4 definitions of appreciate, which I did not know there were 4 different definitions of the word appreciate, but you break them down much simpler than the drawn out the definition. Will you share those 4? Because you not only broke it into a simpler explanation of that definition, but you also broke it into actionable steps that connect together. Will you share those, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so let me ask you a question. What's before reading it, how would you define appreciate?
I guess for me, I would have I don't consider myself highly educated, but I'm fairly well read. So I don't have a structured thought of when I hear the word appreciate until I apply it to a situation, because I know there are different definitions of it. You know, I do investing, so I understand appreciation from that perspective. Like I said, my father's a minister and I used to be a youth minister. So I also understand the word appreciate from a different perspective. But for me, it was always very situational. It wasn't a clear cut. It's like, oh, well, this is how I would define it, because without a situation, my brain wouldn't wrap that up, if that makes sense.
It absolutely does. So as a person who spends most of my time with words, I wasn't surprised to find that there were actually those 4 different unique definitions of the word appreciate. But when I went and looked it up as sort of a place to start, when I saw those 4 definitions, it was like another one of these, awesome little gifts. It's like, oh my gosh, there's actually like this full process framework here that works incredibly well with what I'm trying to share. So the 4 basic definitions of appreciate. The first one is just sort of the idea that you can understand that something exists, right? So I appreciate that there's a car outside my window, right? The second one is to understand it, right? Is to understand the value of what it is. Oh, I appreciate that there's a car outside my window that if I needed to go somewhere, it's there for me. All right. The third definition is to actually be grateful for something. And that's probably the one that people get to most quickly. That's sort of everyone's default. But, there's a car outside my window and I know that if I needed to go somewhere, it's there for me. Hey, I'm really grateful that if I'm in an emergency or, I don't have to walk, there's a car for me. And then the fourth one is this idea that you spoke of from a financial or real estate sort of perspective, is the raising in value or price of something. When your portfolio appreciates or your assets appreciate, they become more valuable. So those are the 4 basic definitions, but as a process of going through and looking at different situations, I realized that all of these situations that I was describing in the book had this sort of stair-step process. And so I see it, I get it, I'm grateful for it, and I can grow what I got, right? So first you have to recognize that the situation even exists. I appreciate that that's happening to me. And then with a little bit more hindsight and some experience, you sort of get it and go, oh, wow. Now that I think about it, I actually understand what happened to me and what it means. And then with even more hindsight or context, you start to become grateful for those things. And then finally, when you can truly appreciate something is when you're able to pass that along to somebody else, when you're able to share the lessons that you learned or the gifts that you were given as a result of having that experience, so that either somebody has the same experience that you had because it was a good one and you wanted to share that blessing with them, or they're able to avoid the pitfalls or the challenges or the heartbreaks or whatever that you experienced, or at least come through them a little cleaner than you did because you're able to share with them what you learned, and you're able to appreciate that situation.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. And guys, that is broken down beautifully in chapter 3 of the book. And until you actually like honestly write that out, okay, that was a big moment for me to see that written out and just broken down the way you listed it. You know, was it got it, see it, or I'm out of order there. Got it, see it. You know, it when you put the 4 of them together and the way it flows was just like ding, you know, like